All right. So we had a guest scheduled for today, and I guess he rescheduled a few weeks ago, but it didn't get updated in our system. So, and my co hosts, some of them can't make it. They have meetings and stuff. So I'm just going to go live and just talk a little bit about what I've been working on lately and some of the things that are going on with me and with top end devs. And anyway, you all can jump in and get as involved as you want. So, couple of things. One thing that I just run into with people is a lot of folks are worried about how do I stay current or how do I get to a certain place in my career, whether they're looking for or like a promotion or a raise or maybe they don't even know what they want. Right? A lot of times I run into that where people are basically going, I don't really know where I want to end up, and so. Anyway, as I've been talking to folks, I started to, ask some questions about where they want to end up. So let me just give you a couple of examples, and that way I can kind of set the stage for what I'm trying to put together. Um, so some folks are they're just lost, right? They're like, look, I have a programming job. I feel like there's something more there. I don't know what that is. A lot of them are senior developers, which is really interesting. So they've early on in their career, right? They were ambitious, they were learning, they were growing, they were kind of trying to find ways to push the envelope. They wanted to work on interesting projects. They wanted to, know the latest and greatest technology. In a lot of cases, they were coming into the industry when Angular was hot, or React was hot, or Vue was hot, right? And now things have more or less settled out. So we've covered like the latest version of Svelte, and that makes a little bit of a splash. And then people keep using React mostly, right? Or Quick, and so people are like, oh, Quick, right? Hydration, and then um, they don't see major movement forward. People are still generally using a lot of the same systems and things like that. And so people feel like they've stagnated that way, or they're working on a project that's using an old version of React or an old version of Angular. And they don't feel like they're having opportunities to use the latest thing. And so they're worried that they're falling behind. And then there are some people who that's not really their issue, but they want to contribute in a different way, right? So they want to help people learn, or they want to speak at conferences, or they want to become well known through podcasting or YouTube or something like that. And so, anyway, so I've been talking to people, and it's like, okay, well, what's holding you up, right? What because this is really the crux of the thing, right? Is what do you want, and then why aren't you getting it, right? And so depending on their situation, a lot of the folks who are kind of they've gone as far as they can where there's a roadmap. It's well, I don't know what to do next. I don't know where I can go from here, right? Some of them see a path through like management, right? So they can become a team lead or a director or CIO or CTO. But I've talked to plenty of people that don't want to go that way, right? It's like, no, I just want to write code and solve interesting problems and do cool stuff. Sorry, my allergies are bad today, and I haven't taken any medicine, so let me do that real quick, and then maybe this will clear up a little bit. But anyway, so they right, so they're going, so what do I do? Oh, that did that right on camera. I will have that edited out. That's the beauty of doing these things not live. Anyway, only 10 of you saw it. 11 now. Anyway, so yeah, so it's okay, so how do I figure out what I want, right? And what I tell people is for the most part, try all kinds of stuff, right? So if you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I do want to be a speaker. We'll find a local conference or a local meetup group or something like that. Put something together and go out and do it, right? If you're thinking, well, maybe I want to do a podcast, well, you can start one. I mean, it's I say this having done it since like 2008, but it's really not that hard. It's not that involved, right? Um, you don't have to have a fancy mic. You don't have to have a bazillion dollars to spend on internet or anything, right? You can go host a podcast on any number of places. You can record locally your computer, push it up to YouTube, right? People conflate YouTube and podcasts, and I think the definition matters. But at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of people they don't. I have plenty of friends that are not in the podcast community that YouTube and Spotify and the podcast app on your phone all essentially get you the same thing. And so to them, it's a podcast. So my point is, give it a shot, right? Try it out and really try it for a while, right? This is the same idea as sort of agile development in the sense that you set a hypothesis for what you could do better, right? You try it for a lot of times you have to try it for a few weeks or a few months, and then it's okay, this is working or this isn't working, and so then you adjust it, right? And sometimes you adjust it by saying it's kind of working, and so I'm going to do something slightly different. And sometimes you adjust it by saying I'm going to do something completely different because this solution is not working. um but yeah, so if you're stuck, I just encourage you to try a bunch of different things, right? And just keep in mind too that, for example, if you decide you want to author books on technology, that getting going with that is kind of a deep set of work, and it's going to be a slog. It's going to be involved, right? I've written a book. I would like to write another one, but I know how much work it is, and so I haven't quite gotten around to kicking it off because I know that it's a longer term commitment, right? Um, but yeah, so if that's where you're at, figure that out. And sometimes it helps if you have a coach or somebody else who can help you along. And I'll put it out there, I'm doing that, right? That's part of what I'm working on. And that's why I'm talking about some of these things that I've got going on in what I'm doing. But I mean, you can hire somebody else. You can go on some of the mentorship platforms like Mentor Cruise or Code Mentor and see if you can find somebody there who can help you get that rolling. If you want to do podcasts and media like what I'm doing, then maybe I'm the right pick. If it's somebody else, right, then go that way. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is go try some new things. Now, if you're one of the people that you have a definite idea of where you want to go, right? So, or maybe you try a bunch of stuff and you're like, okay, this is the direction I want to head in because I really love this aspect of it, right? And maybe it's not podcasting, but maybe it's I get to interview cool people, and so that's the thing that you love, right? And so podcasting is more of the vehicle of what you want, right? And so you're making connections in the community. But anyway, so then what you have to figure out what you want. So let's say that you're like, okay, well, I want to retire in 10 years. And I want to, by the way, I have something coming up for that. And that's why it came to mind, right? It's like I talked to somebody that's like, here's your plan for retiring in 10 years is for your programmer, right? Which was cool. And I think it's a doable thing for most people in the programming space. But anyway, I digress. But maybe that's your goal. And then you also want to do coaching and products, right? Instead of full-time coding, right? So you'll do codings to stay sharp and to stay involved and understand where people are at, right? Because you want to have that thing in common with them, but then also you want to do the coaching and things like that. And so maybe you start building up your reputation so you can actually get people to want to buy stuff from you, right? And so um so then from there, what you want is you want a group of people that are trying to do the same thing, right? A lot of people that I talk to, what they really want is they just want to stay sharp on their programming skills and they want to build cool projects. And so whether that's, hey, at work, we're using the latest and greatest stuff. And so we're going to build cool stuff with the latest and greatest stuff. Or I'm going to work at this company and build with whatever stack they've got. And then in my spare time, I'm going to go work on latest and greatest stuff, right? And I'm going to go use the latest technologies there, right? So at that point, now you've got this thing, right? I have to build these skills. I have to have these capabilities. I've got to be able to do these kinds of things, right? And in order to do that, I've got to go learn this stuff, right? So that's what I'm building, right? Is I want to build the platform for that. And the way that because it's not always just so simple as go take a course, right? Is my experience. And if your goal is mostly to stay sharp and stay current, then you can go buy course after course after course after course, or you can follow along with somebody who is just trying to do that same thing, right? And so, what I'm putting together is, hey, here's a video series. You get a video every week. It's 10 to 15 minutes, and we're going to walk through something related to JavaScript, right? Initially, I think I'm actually just going to do Remix, which is a React-based framework. And so, if you're trying to stay up on the latest and greatest React stuff, and you're looking at the way that Remix adopts things, that's probably the direction I'm going in. Incidentally, I'm also doing this with Ruby and Rails. And so I'm getting into some of the stuff there with Hotwire and, some of the other aspects that go in that. But so we're putting it together. You can pick up the skills through that. But the other thing that really helped me when I was a newer programmer was going to the meetups. So here in Utah, they had a very, very healthy meetup group for Ruby. They incidentally also had one for JavaScript. They had one for Angular. They had one for React. And COVID mostly just they don't run anymore. And the reason that they don't run anymore is so for one, they hang on, I got a Slack from my client. For some reason, I feel like I have to look at it. Oh, this is nothing I have to worry about. I can get away with that when I have the panel on because, I kind of listen in while they talk. But anyway, it's not an emergency, so I'm not going to worry about it for right now. So anyway, so my point is that I went to these users groups, right? And I got a couple of things out of it. One of them was the presentations, right? Which you'll get out of the videos, but I also want to do presentations where we get on and walk through a process and people can ask questions and things like that. And I don't have to be the person presenting every week, right? So I'll probably bring in guests from the show, probably bring in people that you've already heard, right? So I'd love to get like Ryan back on to talk about Dino too, right? And it's like, hey, why don't you come show us Dino, right? Like come do a presentation for a half hour or an hour, right? And just walk through it. Or get somebody else, maybe have Dan come on and do web performance stuff, right? Or he got in and he was all gung-ho about Prometheus and Grafana, right? And so it's like, hey, why don't you show up and talk to us about Prometheus and Grafana? I mean, whatever. But the point is you can get in and you can just, you can pick up some of this stuff and you can interact with some of these experts and you can get some of that feedback on some of the stuff and you can see what they're doing, right? Because they typically come in and they tell you what they're working on and show you what it is, right? And so I really love that idea. And then, every month or two we can do like hey, why don't we just have everybody get on and introduce themselves and we get to know each other and do some networking and things like that, right? For a healthy community. I'd love to have a forum where we're discussing the ins and outs of this, that, and the other, right? Hey, I'm trying to build this Remix app and I want to host it on cloud. I have a very specific idea of what I want to show you in the videos, right? I want to host it on Cloudflare pages with Cloudflare workers. And the reason is because the thing I want to build is a thing that got in my more political involvement we we had people pre-register for our caucus that night, and um, we basically got DDoSed, right? And so it caused us some problems. And so I'd love to just stick it up on Cloudflare pages, convince the party to just kind of put the credit card in there and say, hey, for the next 4 months, just let it rip, right? And then just pay for whatever comes in. But Cloudflare is also pretty good at helping you avoid the DDoS. Anyway, so all right, so I walk you through. Hey, we build the Remix app and we put this together, and hey, we're going to put this on workers and this on pages, and it's all going to work nicely together. And anyway, you get the idea, right? And so I'm kind of excited about the idea of doing it that way. And for those of you that have followed along for a while, I'm generally a Ruby on Rails developer, and I could build this in Rails, and I could put it up on like Heroku, but I'm kind of jazzed about the idea of doing this in Remix and showing it off, right? And I have some other ideas for some other things I want to build, and put those up maybe on a Heroku or something like that, or show you all how I self-host stuff, and see if I can show JavaScript developers the deployment system I use for my Rails apps, because it'll work for both, right? So you can get a lot of these demos either in the meetups or in the videos or both, and then you can also get to know each other and interact, and you can build things that way. The other thing is that you can come in and you can say, hey, you talked about this in the video and you talked about this on the podcast, have you thought about this, right? And so then we go find somebody that can help explain that. And so and that's a lot of the power that came in my career out of doing the podcasts and having experts on every week that I could talk to, and then showing up and going to these meetups and talking to people in person and sitting down and having them look over my shoulder and look at my code and say, oh, this, I like this, I don't like this, you should be doing this, have you thought about this, right? And just get that level of feedback so that I'm leveling up. And I want to provide that to people, right? And some of that may come from me as kind of the coach or the guy running it, but I'm hoping that a lot of it comes from just the community and just having a powerful way to connect. And so as we put all this together, I guess the other piece to this is the book club, right? Because there are some quintessential books that cover software development ideas, techniques, approaches, right? So I'm thinking like, I think it's Writing Object-Oriented Software Guided by Tests. I think the first word's different. But getting into that, or Patterns of Enterprise Application Architecture, right, from Martin Fowler. I think it was Martin Fowler that wrote it. But anyway, so then you get into some of these patterns on how people design their applications, or maybe we do domain-driven design, or we get into how to use Git better, or we get into maybe there's a web performance book out there, or things like that, right? And then so we can use these during the book club. But the other part of the book club that I want to do is, here's how you improve, not just in technology, right, with the technology approaches, but here's how you improve yourself as a person, whether it's I want to learn this, and so I'm going to become a better learner, or I want to achieve these things in my life, and so I'm going to read a book. So right now, I have on the docket Tony Robbins, Unleash the Giant Within, right? And so, I mean, I have one guy showing up to the book club right now, but the idea is again, so and the other book, the technical book that we're doing right now, is the building AI enabled applications, right? So it's not build your own model. I think there's some aspect to that in the book, but it's mostly, hey, you've got these large language models like GPT or Claude or some of the other ones, right? And they can figure out how to do specific tasks. And then if you give them API access to things out there in the world, then you can say, hey, reschedule this appointment to this other date. And it's smart enough to go and say, okay, I'm going to go connect to the Google API. I'm going to connect to Google Calendar. I'm going to go find the appointment that you're talking about. If I'm not sure, then maybe I'll verify with you, right? And then I'll go in and I'll change the date and I'll send an update out to all of the attendees, right? And then if there's some other system that correlates with it, so let's say that it's a podcast recording, right? And I have something in my system that's podcast prep, right? And there are timelines attached to it, then it's also smart enough to say, and I'm going to go through the other APIs and I'm going to update the top end dev system and tell it, hey, this recording got moved, so update your internal calendar and all the timelines related to this episode, right? So you kind of get the idea. But then we can also let people know who said, I was really interested in hearing about this thing from this person. We can let them know, hey, right, you were expecting it to come out next week. It's going to come out in 3 weeks instead, right? And so it can do all of that, right? And so just building those kinds of AI agents into applications, I think is fascinating. And so I'm pulling that together, right? And so that those are the three, in fact, memberships that I'm putting out there. One's for Ruby, one's for JavaScript, and one's for AI, for agentic AI, right? So we have Adventures in Machine Learning as one of our shows, and they get way into the weeds of here's how you massage your data, here's how you do the model, here's how you train it, here's how you pick the right. What I'm interested in is I don't want to go have to be the math head. I don't want to go have to wrangle all the data. I just want to use the LLM and get the result, right? So I'm almost an API jockey for this stuff, right? And so then the rest of it's like prompt engineering and things like that. But that's what I've been loving in this book. It's just been great to read it. So anyway, so that's what I'm building, right? And I'm not going to go hard sell it, right? It's like, well, if you sign up today, blah 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 blah. I do have a deal because it's still in beta, and so if you use the coupon code beta, you get like 60% off or something. But if you want to go out and you want to go form your own learning group on the internet or in your own thing and just set up a Discord server and try and arrange all this stuff yourself, I mean, go for it, right? I mean, that's the thing is I'm building it because I want it. And I think I can do a good job finding the experts to come in and talk to us and doing the research and doing the presentations and making sure that you have the videos. But, if you think that you've got a bunch of people in your area that would do this, go do it. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to get together with people and do it. So anyway, so that's one thing that I'm building. And, just to kind of help people on their learning journey. So just go to topenddevs.com. If you're interested in I guess I don't have links on the main page. So JavaScript, the JavaScript group is javascriptgeniuses.com. The Ruby group is rubygeniuses.com. The AI group is aidevgeniuses.com. I need to put one up for the like the full membership. So if you wanted to do two of the three or all three, I do want to put kind of an all-in-one. So if you're interested in that, email me and I'll give you a link. But yeah, so I'm working on that. But the other thing is I also want to help people who maybe more passively want to follow along. So if you just want to do the instructional videos, right, then I'll have a membership for that. If you want to just get emails in your inbox for free, right? Hey, here's how you use something AI, or here's how you use something Vite or root or JavaScript, or something like that. Hey, I'm still not understanding React server components. Okay, well, here are 2 weeks worth of emails about React server components, right? We're kind of putting all that together too. And then, just building everything else out for the podcast system. I'm just, I'm really committed to that. So, I talked a little bit about that timeline thing, right? And so what I'd like to do when people sign up for the podcast, right, to come on and be a guest is I'd like it to send out an email and say, okay, we have a page where you can go and you can give us information so we can prepare, right? And so they can come in and they can say, okay, well, here's the topic that I want to talk about, or I was invited to talk about, right? Here's the rundown of what you've got to know. here are some resources if you want to go listen to another podcast episode or watch a video or read a blog post or anything like that, right? And then we can come in ready to go, because that's kind of been hard lately with just the system, because it's just a calendar system. And I don't want it to be, oh, you've got to come write a report for us when you put it on our calendar. And so, yeah, just getting that together, it did be really cool. But the other thing is I kind of want to build some of this with the AI stuff where it's, hey, John signed up to be a guest on JavaScript Jabber, so make sure that everything's ready for prep. And so then the AI can send the emails and it can go add the conferencing link and everything else, right? And so anyway, but yeah, so that's another aspect of things that I'm working on. um I'm also working on putting together essentially an ad-free version of the podcast. And I've gotten some complaints lately because um, I switched the hosting over to Spreaker because they were saying that they were going to find me sponsors. And so I put the ads in the shows, and a lot of the ads are kind of generic ads. And um, anyway, I don't love them. I know a bunch of you don't love them. And so, having a premium version that doesn't have the ads in it, I think would be nice. But I think so. One of the podcasts I listen to, actually, two of the podcasts I listen to are done by Adam Curry. And Adam in the podcast space is known as the Podfather. And what he's done, so he has a show called No Agenda. They get into politics, and a lot of times they're just making fun of the news people. And it's like, why would you say that way? Or why would you do that way? But they definitely have a political bent. And so I just warn people, because some people get bent out of shape if they hear stuff that doesn't align with their political ideology. Personally, if I hear stuff that doesn't align with my political ideology, I love sitting down and going, okay, why do you think that? Right. And just see where people are at. But anyway, you got fair warning. But what they do on both that show and the other one is podcasting. What is it? Podcasting 2.0, I think, is the podcast. Anyway, you can find it there. But so No Agenda, he does it with John C. Dvorak. And with the other one, he does it with the guy that has built podcastindex.org. And, they're building podcasting 2.0. And so they talk about podcasting 2.0. But the way they support those shows is through donations, right? So they don't run ads. They just do the donations. And the problem that I've had is that I have to pay for hosting. I have to pay for editing. I have a virtual assistant that helps me with a whole bunch of stuff with the shows, right? With the scheduling and outreach and things like that. And so for me, I have to pay them. And the ads from Spreaker have been enough to pay the people, right? And then I had a sponsorship deal from Linode, and so everything's hosted on Linode. And up until a few months ago, I didn't have to pay any hosting costs because it was all covered by a sponsorship. And so it's just lately that I've had to start, shelling out for the servers and stuff that I'm using. So that said, right, if I had enough donations to cover all that stuff, I'd be really, really tempted to move the hosting off of Spreaker, or at least turn the ads off, right? And then just run it on my own stuff. And so then if you got ads, it would be hey, I'm doing a summit on JavaScript, right? You should come to it, right? And I don't know. I hate the like super salesy ads. What I really like is, hey, look, I've got a thing. I think you'd like it. I think it'd be good for you. Yeah, there's a free version and a paid version. The paid version's better, but I'm doing this because I want to help people. So let's do it, right? Or hey, go sign up for the email list so that I can send you JavaScript tips. Or hey, I had a bonus episode with somebody and they talked about how to retire in 10 years, right? And so I'm 44. That's interesting to me, right? Because then I'd like to travel with my kids who in 10 years, my youngest is 8, will be adult children. And I think it'd be fun to go travel the world with my adult kids and, do interesting things, right? Or even sooner, right? If I can afford it, right? And so, um, so just talk about that and why I think you should do it too, right? And so anyway, so there are pieces like that I want to put together and kind of go, here's the deal, right? Or if there's a tool that I love, right? So then I'm not advertising in the sense of, hey, these people offered me money, but I would actually like give you real content. Here's what it is. Here's how I use it. Here's how it goes together. Right. No pressure. Go find something else that works for you that does the same thing. But here are the benefits. Right. And so if I advertise anybody else's stuff, it's going to be because I'm absolutely in love with the product instead of, hey, look, I think this would help some people. Right. I don't just the putting the other ads in kills me because I don't even know what they are a lot of the time, and I don't love that. So anyway, so I do want to build the donation piece in and then basically just set a benchmark. If I make so much this month or if I make so much over this quarter, then I won't take sponsorships the next quarter, right? And anyway, the other thing is I would be happy to read the names of the donors, right? The way that No Agenda does it is if you send in at least $200, you're an associate producer and they read your note. And then if you send in over $300, then you're an executive producer and they read your note. And then they do some other fun stuff that I like. They have jingles and clips that they play and stuff like that. And so anyway, so that's just another area that I'm looking at. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, this is what I want to do. I just want to help people get their stuff figured out. I think there's probably a SaaS product somewhere in the podcast platform that I'm building out. So I might wind up offering that. There's a certain level of multi-tenancy that I want to do there because I want to start some shows about faith, about my faith. I want to start some shows about, um, I hesitate to say politics. I mean, it is rather political what I want to cover, but it's not so much the, rah, 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 this party. It's mostly, hey, look, we all want to live in a community where we have certain things going for us, right? Where, you know, basically, if you're of a different political or religious or, lifestyle persuasion than me, that you can still move into my neighborhood and feel safe and feel welcome and right. And then if I move into your neighborhood and and we don't align on all these things, right? I feel safe moving into your neighborhood, right? And then if I build a business, I can prosper in these ways. And if I put some of these other things together, I can prosper in these ways. And if I decide to live my life in this completely insane or weird or not well understood way, so be it, right? I have the freedom to do that. And, I live in a society that accepts that, right? But at the same time, if I feel like something is morally wrong that is legally allowed, then I can speak up on it. You and I can have an argument about it, and then we can both go home as friends anyway, right? And so anyway, that's just another aspect of things that I kind of want to cover, right? And so it's more of a hey, let's have the conversations, even the hard ones, and understand each other. Because I think when it comes right down to it, I think most of us want most of the same things. And so on the areas that I think are critically important where we don't see eye to eye, um, again, it's like, okay, well, you know, you may make some good points and I may make some good points. And we both come away kind of enriched and enlightened on our position on whatever the thing is, even if you really don't move me any closer to your side and I don't move you any closer to mine. So anyway, but those don't belong on this network. And I guess as I kind of have gone off on that tangent for the last 30-40 seconds, my point is I'd like to put those on separate networks, but since I've already written the software, right, then I would like to just provide it here. And then, as I put on summits and things like that and host them on the platform and stuff like that, I'm providing pieces for that. And then we have an entire back catalog of podcast episodes. There were a few years like 2015, 2016, 2017 that I did a number of online summits. And so I'd like to make all those available inside the membership. Um, I'd like to do bonus episodes for people who are members. Um, you know, it just give people so much worthwhile stuff that moves the needle for them, right? So that if you're sitting there and you're thinking, yeah, I want to be a notable, reliable JavaScript expert at work that can, function, maybe you want to just specialize at one layer, or maybe I want to kind of be the go-to person for the whole stack. You're right. Or maybe it's just deployments, or maybe it's builds, or maybe it's something else, right? But I want to give you the tools to be there, right? And so when somebody comes along and says, we have this problem, then you can say, well, I know there's a solution because I watched a video on it, and I can go find it easily, and I can, I can get walked through it, or I can at least kind of get the building blocks of getting started, and I can, figure out what's next. Or, as AI starts to come into more arenas, right? Like programmer arena, um, you know, and takes on, I don't see it taking on a lot of the hairy projects or problems as much as just, okay, we're going to need boilerplate stuff, and having the AI go, okay, here's your boilerplate, boom, 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 right? And yeah, I see that as kind of taking away some of the work, I guess, from junior developers. But at the same time, if it's doing that for them, then it can elevate them to actually solving problems instead of doing stuff that a computer can do. So, just working through all this stuff. So I know I've kind of brain dumped a lot of this on you, and I apologize for that, I guess. But that's kind of the direction that I'm heading with Top End Devs. Um, I picked up a contract last week, so it's kind of slowed me down on some of this. But I'm basically to the point where I can start delivering content, and running the meetups and the book club. And so, anyway, if you're interested in joining any of this, yeah, just go to javascriptgeniuses.com. Like I said, you put in the coupon code beta and it'll lower it. So the monthly is $97. It lowers it to $39. For the yearly, it's $970 for the year, and it lowers to $390 for the year. And then I think it does the same thing for the lifetime, and lifetime's $29.70 or something like that. I think it's $2,970, and I cannot math that in my head, but it's the same percentage. So anyway, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about here. So if you're interested in any of that, let me know. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn or send me an email at chuck@topenddevs.com, and we can jump on a call, right? So if you have any questions about how any of this is going, or if you want to help out with any of it, if you want to present at any of the meetups, or if you want to be on the podcast or anything like that, I am delighted to have you involved and see what we can figure out. So even if you live in an area where it's like, well, that's kind of expensive for me, or you're between jobs, come talk to me anyway, and we'll see what we figure out. Because that's the other thing is I'm talking to people who are between jobs. They're kind of the people that need this the most, and so I really want to help them out too if I can. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got. I should probably do some picks. So a couple of things. I usually do a board game pick, and so my friends and I were playing a board game called Keep the Heroes Out. So that's my first pick. And basically, I think the best way I would describe it is it's like Dungeons and Dragons in reverse. And there's not really a storyline, it's just a board game. Okay. So you play as the monsters, and then you flip cards over at the end of everybody's turn, and that's where the heroes come into the dungeon. And when they come into the dungeon, they'll do their, so they show off, and so they have an ability that they trigger right away when they come into the dungeon, and then they'll attack any monsters, which is your guys, in the room they're in, and then they'll attempt to open the chest in that room if there is one. And then if there's nothing that they can do, then they move toward the vault. And the way that you lose is if the heroes get to the vault and open the chest in the vault, which every game I've played takes 4 heroes. So you have to have 4 activated heroes in the vault and no monsters, basically. But if you have 4 activated heroes in the vault, then that's how many it takes to open it. So there's a number on the chest. That's how many activated heroes have to be in there in order to open the chest. But they attack the monsters first. And if they attack a monster first, then they deactivate, right? And so then they have to be activated again by another hero coming into the room. So anyway, it's got a board game weight of 2.47. And each monster takes a little bit to kind of figure out how to play them. But it's a really fun game. It says it's 1 to 4 players. I played it with 4 and I played it with 3. I'm trying to think if it's better with 3 or 4. I think it was about the same. But anyway, keep the monsters or keep the heroes out. Yeah, super fun game. So I'll post the link to YouTube and Facebook and stuff. But anyway, it's super fun. And then the other one is, and I've got to look it up too, but Mike Rowe had a movie come out in 2024, and my wife and I watched it on VidAngel, and it looks like Angel Studios actually put it out, but it's called Something to Stand For. It's by Mike Rowe. So if you watch Dirty Jobs, he's the host, and he just tells a whole bunch of stories from American history. And anyway, it was awesome. So if you're into the history, and he does it in kind of the form of Paul Harvey, right? The rest of the story. So he tells you the story without telling you who it's about. And then, at the end, it's, and so this president of the United States, when he did this thing, right? And, kind of that's the rest of the story. So, anyway, that's kind of the deal as far as how that goes and how that looks. So, anyway, really, really enjoyed that. So I'm going to pick that as well. And I think that's it. I think that's all I've got. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed a 45-minute ramble on this stuff, and hopefully that gives you an idea of where we're at. And until next time, folks, Max out.